Don't make your decision just yet. Before you walk away. Before you answer that message. Before you sign your name. Before you close that chapter. Stay with me for a moment. Because sometimes the biggest mistakes are not made because people lacked intelligence. They are made because they acted before they understood what was really happening. There are moments in life when everything appears clear on the surface. The opportunity looks perfect. The relationship feels convincing. The answer seems obvious. Yet beneath the surface, there are details that only become visible when you slow down long enough to notice them. If you have been praying for wisdom, if you have been asking God to help you make the right decision, then perhaps the next few moments are not about receiving an immediate answer. Perhaps they are about learning how to recognize one. Many people ask God for direction. Far fewer are willing to wait long enough to receive it. Waiting is uncomfortable. It challenges your emotions. It tests your patience. It exposes whether your decisions are being led by peace or by pressure. Pressure has a way of making almost any option seem like the right one. But urgency and wisdom are not always the same thing. Some doors should be opened immediately. Others should be approached carefully. Discernment is learning the difference. Think about the last time you rushed into something because you were afraid of missing out. How did that turn out? Perhaps it taught you something valuable. Perhaps it reminded you that every opportunity is not necessarily the right opportunity. Every invitation is not your assignment. Every open door is not automatically your destination. Sometimes the hardest word to say is, wait. Not because waiting is weakness, but because waiting requires trust. Trust that what is meant for you does not have to be forced. Trust that wisdom is worth more than speed. Trust that peace is a better guide than panic. There is a verse in James that says, "If any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault." Notice what it invites us to ask for. Not instant success. Not perfect certainty. Wisdom. Because wisdom changes how you walk through every season. Perhaps the secret you have been searching for is not hidden in someone else's motives. Perhaps it is hidden in your own patterns. How many times have you ignored your deepest values because you feared disappointing someone? How many times have you chosen immediate relief over lasting peace? How many times have you confused being busy with moving forward? Those questions are not meant to condemn you. They are meant to awaken you. Growth begins where honesty begins. God sees what other people cannot. He sees the conversations you never had. The tears no one noticed. The choices you wrestled with in silence. The burden you carried while telling everyone you were fine. That does not mean every difficult feeling is a supernatural sign. It does mean your inner life matters. It deserves attention. It deserves honesty. If something keeps disturbing your conscience, do not silence it simply because it is inconvenient. Bring it into prayer. Bring it into wise conversation. Bring it into the light. Truth does not become weaker when it is examined. it becomes clearer. Perhaps you have been asking for a miracle while overlooking the wisdom already available to you. The wise counsel you avoided. The habit you knew needed to change. The conversation you kept postponing. Sometimes the breakthrough begins with obedience in ordinary things. Not dramatic moments. Ordinary faithfulness. One honest apology. One forgiven offense. One courageous boundary. One faithful step. Those small decisions often become the turning points you recognize only in hindsight. Do not mistake silence for abandonment. Many people in Scripture experienced seasons where the next step was not immediately obvious. Yet they continued walking with faithfulness instead of fear. Faithfulness does not require knowing everything. It requires trusting God enough to take the next right step. So before you choose, before you react, before you let emotion become your guide, ask yourself a different question. Does this decision move me closer to truth? Does it reflect love? Does it align with wisdom? Does it produce lasting peace instead of temporary relief? Those questions slow you down in the best possible way. Not every delay is a denial. Sometimes it is protection. Sometimes it is preparation. Sometimes it is simply an invitation to become the kind of person who can carry what you have been praying for. Do not despise that process. Character is built there. Strength is built there. Discernment is built there. And when the time comes to move, move with confidence. Not because every uncertainty has disappeared, but because your decision has been shaped by wisdom instead of fear. If today feels like a crossroads, remember this: you do not have to choose in panic. You can choose with patience. You can choose with prayer. You can choose with integrity. And whatever lies ahead, continue seeking what is true, what is good, and what brings genuine peace. Sometimes the greatest blessing is not the answer you receive. It is the person you become while waiting for it. Don't choose yet. Not because you're weak. Not because you're incapable of making the right decision. But because some decisions are too important to be made in a moment of pressure. If you've been carrying a question in your heart, if you've been asking whether it's time to walk away, whether it's time to stay, whether it's time to trust, whether it's time to let go, then don't rush past this moment. Sometimes the greatest mistake isn't making the wrong choice. It's making the right choice for the wrong reason. Pressure has a way of disguising itself as urgency. Fear has a way of sounding like wisdom. Impatience has a way of pretending to be courage. And if you don't slow down long enough to recognize the difference, you'll mistake temporary emotion for lasting truth. You have been carrying more than most people know. Not everything you've been fighting has been visible. Some battles happen in silence. Some happen inside your thoughts. Some happen during long nights when everyone else believes you're doing fine. You smile. You answer the questions. You tell people you're okay. But deep inside, you've been asking one question over and over again. What am I supposed to do now? That question isn't a sign of failure. It's a sign that you're standing at a place where your next decision matters. Every life reaches moments like this. Moments where yesterday can no longer guide tomorrow. Moments where old habits stop working. Moments where familiar answers no longer bring peace. Maybe that's where you are today. Not lost. Just standing at the edge of something unfamiliar. And unfamiliar things often feel frightening before they become meaningful. Think about how many times you looked back and realized something made sense only after you had already walked through it. While you were living it, everything felt confusing. Nothing seemed connected. Nothing seemed fair. Nothing seemed to have purpose. Then time passed. Perspective changed. The pieces slowly began fitting together. You realized that what once felt like a delay had actually protected you. What once felt like rejection redirected you. What once felt like failure taught you something success never could. Perspective changes everything. That's why rushing is dangerous. Because rushing rarely allows perspective to develop. We live in a world that celebrates immediate answers. Immediate success. Immediate results. Immediate certainty. But some of life's greatest gifts arrive slowly. Trust grows slowly. Wisdom grows slowly. Character grows slowly. Strong foundations are never built overnight. If they were, they wouldn't survive storms. Storms reveal what speed can never build. You've probably noticed something about difficult seasons. They reveal people. Not just other people. They reveal you. They reveal what you truly value. They reveal what you're willing to fight for. They reveal what you've built your confidence upon. When everything is comfortable, almost anyone can appear confident. Real confidence is discovered when certainty disappears. That kind of confidence doesn't come from always having answers. It comes from knowing your values even when the outcome remains unknown. Perhaps you've been asking the wrong question. Instead of asking, "What if this goes wrong?" try asking, "What kind of person do I want to become regardless of the outcome?" That question changes everything. Because suddenly the decision isn't only about success. It's about integrity. It's about wisdom. It's about becoming someone who can be trusted. Not just by others, but by yourself. One of the hardest things in life is rebuilding trust with yourself. Every time you ignore your own values. Every time you break promises you made to yourself. Every time you silence your conscience because convenience feels easier. A small part of that trust weakens. The beautiful thing is this. Trust can be rebuilt. One honest decision at a time. One consistent action at a time. One kept promise at a time. You don't rebuild confidence by waiting until you feel confident. You rebuild confidence by becoming someone who consistently follows through. Imagine planting a seed. The first day changes nothing visible. The second day changes nothing visible. The third day still looks the same. If you judged only by appearance, you might believe nothing was happening. But beneath the surface, roots are forming. Growth is happening. Strength is developing where no one can see it. Many seasons of your life work exactly the same way. Just because visible progress seems slow doesn't mean meaningful progress has stopped. Invisible growth often comes first. That can be frustrating, especially when you've been waiting for change. Especially when you've been praying for direction. Especially when you've been hoping that one day everything will finally make sense. Sometimes clarity doesn't arrive before movement. Sometimes clarity arrives because you were willing to take one faithful step. Not 10. Just one. Life has a way of revealing the next piece only after you've been faithful with the one already in your hands. That isn't punishment. It's preparation. Preparation often feels ordinary. You wake up. You keep your word. You learn. You forgive. You improve. You repeat. Nothing dramatic. Nothing impressive. Yet years later people call it extraordinary. They see the results. They rarely see the thousands of ordinary moments that created them. Every meaningful life is built that way. Quietly. Patiently. Consistently. Perhaps you've spent too much time comparing your journey to someone else's. Comparison is exhausting. It convinces you that everyone else is moving faster. Everyone else is succeeding sooner. Everyone else has clearer direction. But comparison never tells the full story. You see someone else's celebration. You rarely see their preparation. You see the achievement. You rarely see the sacrifice. You see the confidence. You rarely see the years of uncertainty that came before it. Your story deserves the freedom to unfold at its own pace. Growth isn't a race. Wisdom isn't a competition. Purpose isn't measured by someone else's timeline. Some of the strongest people you'll ever meet didn't become strong because life was easy. They became strong because they refused to stop growing through difficulty. That difference matters. Anyone can become discouraged. Not everyone chooses to become wiser because of discouragement. There is always a choice. Pain can become your prison. Or your teacher. Disappointment can become your excuse. Or your motivation. Delay can become your frustration. Or your preparation. The event doesn't always determine the outcome. Your response often does. Think about the people who have influenced your life the most. Chances are it wasn't because they had perfect lives. It was because they responded to imperfect lives with remarkable character. Character leaves a lasting impact. Talent may open doors. Character determines what happens after the door opens. Never underestimate integrity. The world notices success. Life depends on character. You cannot control every opportunity. You cannot control every opinion. You cannot control every outcome. But you can control your honesty. Your kindness. your discipline, your willingness to keep learning. Those things remain available no matter what season you're in. If you've been carrying disappointment, don't let it convince you that hope is foolish. Hope isn't pretending life is easy. Hope is refusing to believe that today's circumstances have the final word. There is tremendous courage in continuing to believe meaningful change is possible. Not guaranteed. Possible. That possibility keeps people moving. It keeps them growing. It keeps them preparing. The future is rarely changed by one dramatic moment. More often, it's changed by hundreds of quiet decisions. Choosing patience instead of panic. Choosing truth instead of convenience. Choosing responsibility instead of blame. Choosing compassion instead of resentment. Those choices seem small. Until enough of them accumulate. Then they become a completely different life. Maybe today isn't asking you to have every answer. Maybe today is asking you to become the kind of person who will recognize the right answer when it arrives. There is a difference. Answers can be given. Discernment must be developed. And discernment grows every time you slow down enough to ask better questions. Is this decision leading me toward peace? Does it reflect my deepest values? Am I responding from fear or from wisdom? Will this matter 5 years from now? Questions like these protect you from impulsive decisions. Not because they remove uncertainty. Because they invite clarity. You don't need to know everything about tomorrow to make one wise decision today. One wise decision often creates the conditions for the next. Then the next. Then the next. That is how meaningful lives are built. Not through perfection. Through faithfulness. If this season has taught you anything, let it teach you that your peace is worth protecting. Your attention is worth guarding. Your time is worth investing carefully. The people you allow close to your heart matter. The habits you repeat matter. The words you speak to yourself matter. Everything repeated shapes someone. Make sure it's shaping the person you hope to become. Years from now, you may not remember every obstacle you faced. But you'll remember the moment you stopped letting fear make your decisions. You'll remember the day you chose wisdom over urgency. The day you chose growth over comfort. The day you stopped asking whether you were ready and started asking whether you were willing. That question changes everything. Because willingness opens doors that hesitation never will. So don't choose yet if your decision is being driven by exhaustion. Don't choose yet if you're reacting only to disappointment. Don't choose yet if panic is louder than peace. Give yourself the gift of reflection. Seek wisdom. Listen carefully. Act with integrity. Then move forward without looking back. Because the strongest decisions are rarely the fastest ones. They're the ones built on truth, patience, and the quiet confidence that comes from knowing you didn't allow pressure to become your guide. And when you finally take that step, let it be a step you can look back on with gratitude, not because it guaranteed an easy future, but because it reflected the person you chose to become.